Premium Blend features in-depth conversations with top executives in E&P, finance, A&D, and technology, exclusive to oil and gas investor subscribers.
What are some of the similarities and differences between operations in the Midland and Delaware Basins?
In terms of the Midland, we've played the first part of the game. Now we're starting to get into the grind towards the end. Operators are experimenting with downhole spacing and piloting how tight they can get in the wells, but they've already kind of moved through the evolution of delineation. They found the zones they like, they found the completion practices they like, we believe, but it's really more of a fine-tuning at this point. Whereas the Delaware Basin, for example, we're still seeing proppant come up, we're still seeing a lot of experimentation on the completion side, very little even talk about spacing or tightening up the interwell spacing. It's still much earlier. It's more of a delineation exploration mode, the first couple innings of the game, whereas Midland is very much in the development stage, we think.
What is driving M&A in the Delaware, which is possibly the hottest spot in the world for deals?
It very much ties back to what we were just discussing in terms of the catalysts. The interest was in the Midland Basin. The Delaware Basin wasn't as known or as understood. It's a more complex basin geologically than the Midland Basin. However, over the last couple of years, now operators are starting to understand the basin. They're starting to get costs in line, and they're starting to actually execute on that side. And the investor community is starting to realize that. And they're starting to focus increasingly on the Delaware. And so that's where the dollars are ultimately flowing, as people chase a basin with great opportunity and more catalysts than the Midland Basin.
The Delaware's next frontier could be its northern section, and EOG, Matador, and new entrants are leading the charge.
The Delaware, on the other hand, started as a Bone Spring play, and the Bone Spring is most prolific in New Mexico and along the Central Basin platform. And it's only after the successes that they've seen in the Wolfcamp, in the Midland Basin Wolfcamp, that they've started to chase the Wolfcamp in the Delaware, to get those longer laterals, the big fracs, and the Wolfcamp in the Delaware really is most prolific down the south, in Reeves County, in Culberson County. But what's interesting, I would say, is that operators like EOG and Matador, and probably some of these new entrants to New Mexico, are starting to push the Wolfcamp play back north again. So we're starting to see this shift north. And that's, I think, the genesis for why a lot of these majors are starting to buy up New Mexico. So I think that's the next frontier in the Delaware Basin.
How have commodity prices affected completions?
It would be different for both basins, I think. In the Midland Basin, operators now have largely high-graded to the best zones. They understand the best zones. They've been completing them for some time. So they understand the completion that works. And we really see the sweet spot in the Midland being somewhere between 1,500 and 1,700 pounds per foot. And what we monitor as a proxy for completion innovation is the P10 and P90 of that average proppant intensity. And we actually see in the Midland Basin those two starting to converge, which to us means that operators are testing large completions less, and the operators using lighter completions are moving up. Now the Delaware is a very different story. Operators are still trying to understand that rock. And so when we look at the P10, P90, particularly in the Wolfcamp, there the dispersion is much greater, with some operators doing 1,500 pounds per foot, but on a P90 basis, some operators testing as high as 3,000 pounds per foot. So I think there's still a ways to go there.
On being in the cost trough regarding completions,
you always wonder when you're in the trough, are these completion designs actually the most economic, or is it a function of the completion piece of that D&C and the sand cost being so low? And that's something we're monitoring very closely, because if you actually look, and this is something we do, we heat map proppant intensity across the basins, you find that it's actually the periphery of the play that has the highest proppant intensive completions, which makes you wonder, are these operators that maybe don't have as high quality of rock, they're stimulating them a lot harder to try to, in the trough, to try to bring recoveries up, and will that go away when costs on the completion side start to inflate?
Will vertical drilling, which is how Wolfberry began, fade from the Wolfbone area as horizontal drilling moves in?
I think so, to be honest. In the fairways of the basin, there's very little vertical drilling still out there. I mean, the vertical drilling that we do hear of or see is still focused on those old targets that it always has been, and that's the Central Basin Platform, the Eastern Shelf, the Horseshoe Atoll, and a little bit in northwest Delaware and the Yeso. But even that drilling has started a shift pretty significantly over to horizontal drilling as operators hit the halos of those old conventional basins with horizontal fracturing. So I mean, definitely I can say with confidence, vertical is going out and will be replaced by horizontal.
To stay up to date on the most recent Hart Energy videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here.